werewolf Peter Stump. Long ago, in the region around Cologne in North Rhine-Westphalia, there lived a man named Peter Stump. Even as a boy, Peter Stump was different from the other children of his village. While the boys and girls helped in the fields, tended cattle, or guided the plow, he sought solitude. It was said that he never played with the other boys, but instead wandered into the forest where he would draw strange signs in the dust and fill the silence of the night with whispers. Once, his mother supposedly caught him collecting dead birds, arranging their bones as though he wished to reawaken them. As the years passed, he grew taciturn and gloomy, his gaze often wandering into the distance, as if he saw things hidden from others. The villagers began to avoid him, whispering that he had allied himself with dark powers and practiced black magic. And indeed, one night when he was already a grown man lingering in the forest while the stars shone faintly and the owls sat in silence, the devil himself manifested before Peter Stump, rising from the flames of hell. His form was towering, his wings spread wide and his eyes glowed like embers. Peter Stump threw himself to the ground in reverence, but the devil raised him up and spoke, "Your heart craves blood and power, and so it shall be given, as your will desires." He handed him a magical wolf pelt and said, "Wear it around your loins, and you shall become like the beast that haunts the forests, a demonic wolf, stronger, fiercer, more ravenous than any other creature." As soon as Peter Stump held the wolf pelt, he felt its hunger for him. He wrapped it around his waist like a belt, and at once his body began to convulse. A cry burst from his throat as his bones cracked and reshaped. Arms and legs lengthened, muscles swelled, and dark fur sprouted from every pore of his skin. His fingers bent into claws sharp as daggers, ready to tear flesh and bone. His face stretched forward, the nose twisted, the mouth grew into a muzzle, and long pointed fangs thrust through his gums. In his eyes flared a red glow that no human could bear to look upon. A howl so dreadful it drove the ravens from the sky shattered the silence. He was no longer a man, he was a werewolf. Unlike other werewolves, Peter Stump's malicious human mind remained. He could be a werewolf by day or night, no matter whether the moon hung in the sky or not. And with the werewolf's power, Peter Stump could finally commit the cruelties he had long desired. At first he attacked livestock, sheep, goats, calves, anything on the pastures, but the blood of animals did not satisfy him for long. Soon he craved human flesh, the sweet cries of victims, the trembling of those he struck from the shadows. For more than 2 decades, Peter Stump's bloody trail stretched through the villages and forests around Cologne. When the sun set, people scarcely dared to go out, yet even in broad daylight he assaulted his victims while they worked unsuspectingly in the fields or gathered wood in the forest. Women, above all, lived in terror. Often he would lurk while they fetched water or milked cows. Then he would spring from the thicket, drag one of them to the ground, rape her, and afterward tear her apart with his claws and devour her. He knew no mercy, and even the weakest and most innocent perished beneath his fangs. The screams echoed through the woods, and soon the farmers found only mutilated bodies, mangled beyond recognition. Not only adults, but children too fell prey to him, and the number of his victims grew beyond reckoning. He murdered pregnant women as well, not sparing the unborn, for he would tear the fetuses from their mothers' wombs and devour them too. He even murdered his own son, cracking open his skull to feast on his brain. Nor did he spare his own daughter. As a werewolf he raped her and fathered a child with her. When this monstrous child was born, the poor daughter was accused of being in league with the devil. No one believed her when she swore that she had been brutally violated by her father, the werewolf. Both she and the monstrous child were tortured and burned at the stake. But the werewolf continued his reign of terror. No village remained unharmed, no farm unscathed, and soon the very name of Peter Stump became synonymous with dread and horror. Whoever heard a howl at night knew the beast was near. Yet even such a life of blood and ruin yearned for companionship, and so it happened that the devil sent the werewolf a consort, a female demon of bewitching beauty who stood amidst hellfire like a queen. Her eyes glimmered red like embers, her voice was sweet as honey and sharp as venom. Her form was so alluring that even angels could have been seduced. Peter Stump fell for her at once, and she returned his desire. Passion grew into love, a love of the darkest kind. They joined hands and pledged themselves before the flames of the abyss. In a dreadful ceremony, known only to the damned, they were wed in hell. The devil himself stood behind them, holding a book inscribed with the symbols of the infernal. Around them, demons rejoiced, celebrating that even the monster had entered into a union. From that hour, Peter Stump was not only a werewolf, but the husband of a queen of the underworld. The years passed, and Peter Stump began to believe himself invincible. Every hunt, every victim he tore apart, fed his pride. His wife, driven by dark love, forged him a flaming sword in the fires of hell. With this weapon he assailed not only humans, but other sinister creatures, soon considering himself the ruler of the night. But pride comes before the fall. The stronger Peter Stump felt, the more he despised the devil who had given him the wolf pelt. In his blackened heart grew the thought that he himself could become lord of hell. He whispered this plan to his wife, and blinded by love, she encouraged him. Together they resolved to overthrow the devil, believing that their sword and power could achieve the impossible. So it was that one day Peter Stump stood before the devil, weapon raised. "Your time is over," he cried, and charged with a mighty howl. But the devil drew his own flaming sword and struck back. Blade clashed on blade, claws against claws, sparks flying, the whole of hell trembling. The female demon stood by his side, chanting dark incantations and spurring her husband on. Yet the devil laughed, and every blow from the werewolf bounced off him as though he were made of stone and iron, for the devil is immortal, unkillable by any beast or demon, even by so mighty a werewolf as Peter Stump. The blade forged in the fire of the underworld hissed and roared, but it could not harm the prince of hell. Soon the devil seized the rebel, pressing him down with one motion, and the weakened Peter Stump was forced to yield. "You fool," thundered the devil. "I gave you power and you dared to overthrow me. No mortal, no beast, no demon can cast me from the throne. I shall rule eternally, and you shall pay for your treachery." With terrible force the devil hurled Stump out of hell, back to earth from whence he came. "There the humans may judge you first, whose blood you drank and whose flesh you devoured," he cried. For Peter Stump's wife the devil had a crueler punishment. He tore the horns from her skull and cast her into the deepest abyss of hell, where even demons are consumed by flames. There she was doomed to scream and suffer for all eternity. Peter Stump awoke weakened and wounded upon the earth, stripped of the power he once possessed. As he staggered, a man had already taken up his trail, a farmer who had sworn to bring him down. This farmer was no ordinary man. He was God-fearing, but more than that he was a man consumed by grief. The werewolf had taken his wife, his children, even the unborn child from his wife's womb. Driven by pain and vengeance, he vowed never to rest until the monster was destroyed. Armed with a sword, he lay in wait for the werewolf in the forest. When Peter Stump appeared, still terrifying but weakened, a battle erupted. The farmer struck with his sword, the werewolf with his claws. He scratched and howled, but the old strength was gone. Finally, the farmer managed to tear the wolf pelt from his body. At once the beast's form fell away and Peter Stump stood revealed again as a man, exhausted, wounded, and exposed. The farmer bound him with strong ropes, seized the wolf pelt, and delivered him to the judges, that justice and punishment might be done. On October 31, 1589, in the village of Bedburg, the execution took place. Peter Stump was to die by the wheel, one of the cruelest of all punishments. They tied him to a great wooden wheel, and with red-hot pincers tore the flesh from his bones. His arms and legs they shattered with a hammer. Peter Stump screamed in unbearable torment, begging for mercy, but none was granted. At last, after many long hours of torture, when his body was horribly disfigured and he scarcely had the strength to whimper, they ended his suffering. The executioner struck off his head with an axe. His body was burned upon the pyre, and the people watched as the monster who had terrorized them for so long finally met his end. Only his head was mounted upon a stake for a time as a warning. But the wolf pelt that had been taken was gone the very same night. Some said the devil himself reclaimed it, so that it would never fall into other hands. Yet Peter Stump's torments did not end with death. His soul, black with wickedness, descended once more into hell. There it took form, not as a man, but as a werewolf, just as he had lived on earth. The devil cast him too into the deepest abyss of hell, to suffer forever. In that abyss he found his wife again, screaming in agony, cursing the flames. They embraced and burned together, cursing all else beyond their own existence. And so they remain to this day, united in eternity, a pair bound by love and damnation, surrounded by fire and pain.